I'm Dr. Randy Hurst. I'm a psychologist, albeit fairly retired. Doing these videos to just get some basic information out and trying to get it out to a large group of people, hopefully. And in this case, about anxiety. Anxiety is the largest of the issues that can affect people, to the point that in terms of full-blown disorder where the problems become greater than like 90% of people and affect lives like relationships, work, social lives, even physically. I don't remember the numbers now, but it's like in a lifetime, 24% of people can end up with a full-blown anxiety problem. But I'm really gearing my presentations to people who are, let's say, on the way, or where anxiety is getting to be more of a problem and are wanting to do something about it. So, if you have issues with anxiety, fear, stress, panic, and want to understand more about why any of these things happen and what to do about them, hopefully this will help. I'm going to focus on how the brain works to set up for anxiety and fear issues, how we can make choices that actually make it worse, and then contrast that with what to do to reduce it, to make it better. And this particular video is going to be mostly on what it is and how to understand it and what makes it worse. And then later, I'm calling these the monster making videos, where anxiety is the monster. And then later I'll focus on monster taming. So first, I'll be giving some basics about the brain, very non-technical, general overview kind of thing. But it's partly my fascination with how wonderful the brain is and how lazy and stupid sometimes it can be. Okay, let's start. First, anxiety is about threat. And think of this from a biological standpoint, especially, let's say, the old days where we really did have, depending on the type of part of the world, lions or tigers or mountain lions or bears or, something that could threaten our lives. And I'm borrowing some from an evolutionary biologist named Stephen Jay Gould, an essay that he wrote that made me think, and I don't remember the specifics, this was in Natural History years ago now, of what he said, but I remember what struck me was that man is, on two legs, is slower than animals with four legs, and we're weaker than other animals. So if we weren't just born with intelligence, which, why would that be that we would just automatically have intelligence? What made us different? And then growing up around deer, which are prey animals, which being slower and weaker would make us prey animals, they're very wary. Just to have a drink of water, they can be looking around. They go down to have a drink, but they're looking around. The water running, if it's in a creek, can interfere with hearing. So they're looking. They go down to take a drink, and they pop back up again. It may take 3 or 4 times before they actually get much of a drink, and then they're popping back up again because they're at risk. And we would have that. We do have anxiety, fear is a big part of our lives for self-protection. In the old days, because we were slower and weaker. Nowadays, that's not as big an issue, but that biology, that part of the brain that is geared towards self-protection is still there. So, how do we deal with this threat reaction? Well, if there's a clear actual threat right there, we'll have this fight or flight reaction that zoom, our heart rate goes up or blood pressure goes up, the blood is flowing to your legs to run or flowing to your upper body to fight. And that adrenaline keys us up. If you've been in a situation where, like say in a car, where you almost have an accident, that adrenaline will just, whoa, it's there. And, if it's not that severe, you can get this pit of the stomach feeling that sometimes butterflies, sometimes a very deep pit of the stomach, fear reaction as the heart is keying up, because the gut stops to give the blood to the heart and the rest of the body to gear up for the threat. And luckily, if the threat, let's say, if you truly are in the grasslands in Africa and you're in shoulder-high grass, and there's a sound you don't expect, your whole system will key up, because you don't know if that's a lion. Now, if you find out a few seconds later that it wasn't anything dangerous, your system can settle, the adrenaline can settle, but you're keyed up for a while. And you should be, because you're still in what? Shoulder-high grass. There can still be something that's a danger. But you get out of the situation. It takes a while to calm the body down. Sometimes people have a drink, which is one of the things we'll talk about later that can cause problems. But let's say you settle down over time. It takes a while for the adrenaline to drain out of your body. One of the things that can happen is sometimes, going for a run, doing something physical helps that. Sometimes learning to deep breathe, slow down the system helps that. But it takes a little while. But anxiety is another type of reaction to threat. And this is where you're keyed up long enough that a whole nother body system kicks in, where you're releasing cortisol, which it lasts in the body a lot longer. And this is where it can really interfere with sleep. It can get your brain on overdrive worrying. Your mind is going fast. And it's harder to slow it down because it stays in your body longer. And it takes much more work to slow it down. But this is one that can key up and get you to lock into something else to worry about, something else to add to your fear. Worries can grow on you. And an example of an anxiety that isn't just fear, but isn't about a specific immediate threat. I had a fellow talked about really having a basically decent life, but in line one day, a bunch of people in front of him, waiting to get some money and a change or something. And the thought struck him, how do I know who's touched this money before, that I'm going to get before me? Well, what if they have a disease? What if they have something wrong with them? What if they have, this is back in the days, cocaine is rolled up in dollar bills. What if there's drugs on the bills that I get? It just got into his head. It grew on him. And he came to see me a couple of months later after he was having problems with fears about contamination of many things. People can become afraid of what others think, how others are evaluating them. What do you do if you start worrying about what others are believing about you? What are they saying about you? How do they evaluate you? It can take over your thinking. It can add to fear about going into situations where those people are, or where anybody is. It can change how you present yourself to try to have a good evaluation. Or it can get you to just avoid being where others are and isolate yourself. Some fears are easy. You know, you don't have to get onto an elevator. You don't have to go up high and look down from tall areas. You don't have to get on a plane, maybe. But it can also really harm. What if there's a really good reason to go across country? To go to a wedding, to a family member's funeral, or to a graduation or something like that. And you're so freaked out you can't get there. And, you know, you can drive, but what if it's to Hawaii? Okay, either don't go or you fly. How do you deal with that if the fear has taken over your life? Let's see. How do I go from here? You get how it can take over. Oh, well, a big part. One of the biggest things about this that causes problems is that people will tend to then avoid, just like flying or elevators or high places or people, situations. If you start to avoid the situations, the short-term gain is you feel less anxious. You get rewarded for the avoidance. What if you drink? Use marijuana. They can calm the system down, and you get rewarded for the avoidance or for the use of the chemical. Some people will learn that if I get all excited and spend money on something that is this distraction, this fun thing, is a way to get away from the worry or the anxiety that's taking over your life. And that's a form of avoidance. And each of these things can start to take over your life. Now, the anxiety in general, okay, so I said that biologically, we all have fear issues because of self-protection. The brain is keyed up for fear, for self-protection. And of the various kinds of mental disorders, anxiety is the most likely to hit an individual, with something like 24% of people, if I remember the numbers right, in their lifetime will have some period of time with high levels of anxiety that qualifies as an anxiety disorder. Now, I'm gearing what I'm saying to people to try to catch them before it gets severe enough to become a disorder, and to know the why, because of the way the brain developed through the millennia to protect you. It's important not to try to get rid of anxiety. It's to understand why it's there and what to do about it, and what not to do. And the things like the learning to avoid any anxiety is problematic. But then how to approach situations that are anxiety provoking, how to settle the body down. And I'm going to talk about that more in the monster taming. But first, let me talk about this idea of monster. The anxiety as monster is that when we give into it, we're rewarding the monster. And the monster gets stronger. The more you avoid through alcohol, drugs, getting away from situations, the more the monster gets stronger. And the monster then can take over our lives and affect more and more in our lives. So if this fits any part of you, look into the playlist on monster taming and look at anxiety there. And hopefully have a lot of monster taming techniques that help with this and other issues that cause problems. I hope this makes sense. Keep checking back on other videos. Thanks.